Serendipity, written by LittleKy and read by Eleanor Elizabeth. Summary. Serendipity, noun, having accidentally found something good. If you had asked Yagi Toshinori 8 months ago about his plans for the holidays, he'd undoubtedly have told you nothing. But he's met Midoriya Izuku since then, and, well, the kid has changed everything else about his life, hasn't he? Why not Christmas too? Written for anonymous fic request, Izuku finds out that All Might usually spends the holidays alone, so he invites him to spend them with him and his mum. Just some cute family holiday fluff. Christmas time for Yagi Toshinori means a few different things. First and foremost, 'tis the season for just plain busy, 25 days of non-stop hustle and bustle, even more so after spending his college days in the States. Christmas is an even bigger deal in America than it is in Japan, so when he moved back, he brought back the extra enthusiasm for the holidays with him. Since then, he tended to fill his schedule this time of year with as many charity events as possible. He always gets a kick out of the children's surprise at All Might being the one to hand them their colourfully bundled gifts. It never gets old, seeing the grateful smiles that light up families' faces when he gives the less fortunate ones basic necessities as well. He'd even dressed up as Santa Claus a couple of times during his stay in America, when and where his All Might persona was lesser known. His broad fame and booming voice had helped sell the part pretty well. Between all of his charity stints, he'd deal with the spiking crime rates, of course. Petty thefts and robberies always ramped up in frequency at this time of year. The public's emotions tended to run high on either end of the spectrum during the holidays. All Might was provided a multitude of opportunities to rekindle people's hope, and so, in every way he knew how, he earnestly tried to do so. Then, at the tail end of the season, after serving his city in every way he could think to offer, he'd tiredly step into his dim apartment. It was spacious, minimally filled and quiet as a mouse, but it was home. Unlike much of the world, his own Christmas morning didn't bring much fuss. Assuming he wasn't called into work, he'd opt to spend the day itself in restful solidarity. His employees would send nice holiday cards, and this time of year garnered especially large amounts of thank you letters from fans and civilians he'd rescue, so he'd usually save some of those to read over in the morning. The day would uneventfully stretch until its end, and afterwards, life continued on as usual. Just a day, he can still hear his parents say. They'd hardly been celebratory people. For the first part of Toshinori's life, holidays were something that just sort of slipped by unnoticed, like background noise. As Toshinori had grown and branched out into a life of his own, though, people came and went who attached themselves and happier memories to his Christmases. He and Dave had crashed a few holiday parties during college, which, yeah, those were usually fun, ending just as most parties had for Toshinori back then, with him accidentally breaking something, like the bull in a china shop he'd become while drinking. One year, as a party trick, much to the host's irritation, he'd hoisted an entire well-decorated Christmas tree over his head and happily tossed it off a balcony at the encouragement of other, equally drunk party members. Then he'd leapt down onto the lawn to attack a set of life-size reindeer replicas, mercilessly smashing them to bits, all because one wasted party member had screamed, "Help! Kill a reindeer on the loose!" when a set timer had caused the reindeer to light up and sing a distorted Christmas jingle. That was pretty much the end of those parties. The resulting day-long hangover and lucid dreams of facing down a villainous Rudolph cued the end of Toshinori's short-lived drinking days as well. He'd shown up at the host's door later, shamefaced and holding a plate of his first attempt at sugar cookies, along with monetary compensation for their demolished Christmas decor. Mirai had always become downright giddy at this time of year. He'd show up at headquarters in an elf hat and suspenders, making sure to implement the elf-on-a-shelf tradition in their office, disturbingly dedicated to moving the toy elf to a creative new spot every day. And before Mirai, and even before Dave, there had been Nana. To Toshinori's dismay, many memories of his mentor had faded in clarity, much like a well-loved photograph, one that's been kept too close, crumpled from being stuffed in a back pocket, smudged from fingers grazing at the surface, bent from being clutched too often. Their first and last Christmas together is a memory he only allows himself to revisit once a year, in the fear that his nostalgia will unwittingly distort it. It was the first time that Nana had invited Toshinori to her quaint home. The whole thing was surprising. Nana was a very private person and, until then, had never struck Toshinori as being particularly festive. It didn't occur to him back then how shortly her invite had come after she'd taken note of Toshinori's lack of relationship with his family. She'd even managed to twist Gran's arm to come and spend the evening with them. Simple. I like it," Gran had gruffed, nodding his approval upon entering Nana's minimalist home. Her only holiday decor had been 3 stockings, one for each of them, pinned above her fireplace. A bit unevenly too, as if she'd only just thought to throw something festive up at the last minute. No sense in going all out the way some folks do, just leaves more mess to clean up as soon as the day's over. They played some cards, Nana managing to get Gran red in the face during a heated argument over the right way to teach Toshinori poker. They'd eaten Christmas dinner takeout, because Nana had lacked in the cooking department, and everyone knew that Gran's food prep abilities started and ended with microwaving frozen taiyaki. The food had been mediocre, and the hot cocoa Nana sheepishly served wasn't much better, a bit watered down and burnt tasting. Their laughter was loud as they chatted over mismatched mugs of it though, faces bright red and warmed by the steam. The 3 of them were poorly versed in the art of traditional festivities, or even knowing what it meant to be a family, but they'd done the best that any of them knew how. It was enough. Toshinori hadn't told her, but oh, how he wished he had. Perfect with all its imperfections. The first Christmas he'd ever experienced that he felt worth remembering. This year's Christmas differs from the rest in one important regard. Toshinori has spent the larger part of this year training a certain green bundle of nervous energy into becoming the nation's next symbol. And seeing as this bundle in question is a 15-year-old boy, Toshinori is certain he'll appreciate not having to train over the holidays. UA's entrance exam is quickly approaching, but Midoriya has made leaps and bounds in his progress recently. The kid is more than deserving of a break, even if it's only for 2 days. And that's why, the day before Christmas Eve, Toshinori sends out his text. "There won't be any training tomorrow morning, young Midoriya. You've earned some relaxation time. Enjoy the holidays with your mother." Toshinori didn't know quite what to make of Midoriya's less than enthusiastic response of, "Oh, okay," shocked emoticon. "Happy holidays, All Might." Shouldn't the kid be more excited about getting a day off? He hasn't had a single break in, 8 months. Most other children would be ecstatic, as they tend to be when school gets called off for a snow day. Midoriya is an incredibly dedicated child, he knows. Maybe he's worried that a break will set him back? Toshinori hums at his successor's response on the screen, scratching his chin in thought. "A little time off won't hurt you, kid. Don't want you following entirely in my footsteps." He suppresses a shudder at the thought of Midoriya one day having a body as broken down as Toshinori's. Unwelcome images spring to mind of Midoriya having to wake up throughout the night to hack up blood, of having to tailor his entire way of living to cater to his non-existent stomach. Suddenly, Toshinori is typing out his next text with more urgency. "I mean it, young Midoriya. Hard work is important, but so is rest. Never miss these opportunities to take care of yourself." "Yes, sir. Got it, All Might, sir," is Midoriya's next text, followed by a generous row of thumbs-up emojis to signal that he's received the message loud and clear. Toshinori sighs out in, relief? It's not like the boy has gone and done any permanent damage to himself. Yet. Midoriya doesn't even technically hold one for all. Not yet. Toshinori doesn't quite understand what it is about this kid that tends to send his imagination spiraling into such irrational scenarios from time to time. Normally, Toshinori likes to consider himself a fairly practical man, not one prone to hysterics. "This kid's gone and made you soft, boy," Gran's voice unexpectedly gravels inside his head. "Also, you're not being completely irrational this time. You see yourself in him, and it scares you." Toshinori blinks. 1, because Gran is right, and 2, Because it's Gran. He hadn't thought about Gran in... That's another thing about Christmas. Though it brings a handful of pleasant memories, it also tends to dredge up all the ghosts of Toshinori's past, ushering them to crowd his lonely apartment, where he has no other choice but to face them. It's been years since Toshinori has spoken to Gran, even longer since he'd gotten along with Mirai, or considered himself close to Dave. Decades more since Nana. Just a day, his parents had said. Toshinori knows that's not true. Not for him. It weighs a little too heavily on him to be of no significance. Christmas Eve arrives and Toshinori is awake, blinking up at the ceiling before dawn has a chance to break. He hadn't even set an alarm for the day. His body is attuned to waking up at the same time for the past 8 months now, and it does so this morning without extra prompting. His body twitches to get moving, to roll out of bed and start packing a lunch for both him and his successor, but he fights against the muscle memory. He's not meeting Midoriya today. It feels strange not to be, after over half a year of doing so daily. He cracks open a frosted window as he readies his tea. Cool air pushes through like a whisper, and he shivers. Fresh snow has coated the ground overnight. He decides he'll still head over to Dogaba Beach after he eats breakfast. The beach is close to being clean now. Today would be a good chance for him to sit back and admire all the work his hard-working protege has put in. The snowfall is light enough to where going out in it won't be too much of a hassle. And that's how he finds himself at said beach less than an hour later. He sticks bare hands into his coat pockets and looks out at the sky. Grey-blue painted a light pink where it's been touched by the beginnings of daylight. The chilly air is harsh as it's breathed into his remaining lung, but it's a welcome wake-up. Toshinori closes his eyes, enjoying the quiet before he hears a voice. "All Might?" His eyes snap back open and he whips his head around. "Midoriya, what?" He coughs, having too quickly sucked in a breath of cold air. "What are you doing here, my boy? Training was cancelled for the day." Midoriya's face goes pink, whether from the cold or from embarrassment, Toshinori can't say. The kid never remembers to cover his ears either. Ever since winter's arrival, they've been turned bright red every training session. Each one ends with Midoriya squashing mittened hands up against his ears to warm them. Toshinori isn't sure whether or not Midoriya owns any headgear, or is simply stubborn about wearing it. But as the kid's Christmas gift, well, one of them, Toshinori hasn't had the chance to personally spoil anyone over the holidays before, so he may have went a little wild this year. Sue him. He bought the boy a set of earmuffs. Midoriya's currently mumbling something too quickly for Toshinori to catch. "What was that? Speak up, Midoriya, you're mumbling again," he instructs, half exasperated, half fond. Really, he wonders, what is Midoriya doing here? Looks like Toshinori had every right to be worried. The kid really doesn't know how to take a break. Midoriya sucks in a breath. "I was saying, I know that training is cancelled, but, my mum works until late, so I, decided to come and work on the trash pile by myself. I don't have anything else to do today anyway." Toshinori stares. Midoriya shifts on his feet under the male's gaze, as if expecting to be reprimanded. Snow crunches under the kid's stark red sneakers. "You're alone today?" Toshinori clarifies. If Midoriya looked embarrassed before, he looks absolutely mortified now. He flails an arm around in slight panic. It's not a big deal. I don't want you to feel bad for me. That's why I didn't bring it up. I didn't want to ask you to keep training on schedule because I wasn't sure if you had other plans today, so I just figured I'd come clean the beach by myself." "I don't want you out here by yourself, young Midoriya. Trying to navigate this heap of junk alone could be dangerous. I'd rather be here to keep an eye on you." Midoriya's head snaps up to look at him. Confusion twists his features. "Wait, you cancelled training, so why?" His breath is visible in a puff in the cold. "Why did you come here alone this morning?" Toshinori blinks. Midoriya's head is tilted in silent question. Their breaths cloud the air between them. Loudly, too. The soft snow sitting upon the ground brings such a hush that every noise above it seems amplified. Other than when I'm with you, I'm always alone, my boy, is what Toshinori doesn't say. He doesn't mention how, before meeting Midoriya, Toshinori had been wasting away a bit, wearing the shell of his former glory and furiously denying that it no longer fit. A dying man with little more to fill his schedule than duty. Midoriya and his unyielding exuberance had forcibly shaken Toshinori awake from the autopilot mode he'd intended to ride to his end destination, and though he still inevitably headed towards the same fate, the kid's presence has had him deciding to pump on the brakes. When Toshinori had woken to no alarm this morning, he'd found himself strangely unable to remember what life was like 8 months ago. It was like he'd been in hibernation back then, and at times he was still trying to shake off the numbness of sleep. What exactly did I used to do with my time? No, he doesn't say any of this. Boasting words of confidence is his trademark, his specialty. Admitting vulnerability, well, he's never been quite brave enough. So he clears his throat and said, Well, training is still cancelled, but, seeing as clearly neither of us has plans, would you like to spend Christmas Eve together, young Midoriya? Wait, really? Midoriya's face breaks into a wide, wobbly smile. Really? Toshinori cracks a genuine smile in return. Much as he may play gripe about Midoriya's roller coaster range of emotions, his successor's excitement over the little things is refreshing, honestly. Toshinori doesn't know if he's ever met anyone easier to please. It's all up on the list of things that have endeared this boy to him so. Yeah, kid. Really. So, anything in particular that you'd like to do today, my boy? They've spent the morning moseying through the streets of downtown Musatafu, peeking into storefronts displaying gifts of all kinds. Festive lights twinkle strung in swoops above their heads. People of all ages scurry around them in their last-minute shopping haste. Classic holiday jingles crack out of the speakers above. To be honest, neither had seemed sure where to start. Toshinori having barely ever done anything traditionally Christmas that wasn't work-related, and Midoriya, whose mother's demanding work schedule pulled her away from home most holidays. Midoriya has spent most of his holidays alone thus far, a hesitant admission that had twitched Toshinori's mouth into a frown. He'd also yet again left out any mention of a father, which pretty much cements Toshinori's long-held suspicion that the man is absent. On impulse, he pulled Midoriya into the first coffee shop they come across. He dug out a wad of yen and insisted on treating the boy to hot chocolate, as if this could somehow make up for the boy's past. Do you want whipped cream? How about extra sprinkles? Nonsense, my boy, it's no trouble at all. Toshinori's large hand patted Midoriya's head when the boy became overly flustered at being treated. He'll take your largest hot cocoa, please, with all the works. Oh, I'm really happy doing whatever, All Might, Midoriya insists, clutching with both hands his portable mug of what has to be the world's most ridiculously large hot cocoa. It's topped with a layer of sprinkles so dense that the underlaying whipped cream isn't even visible. What do you usually do? Me? Toshinori absent-mindedly reaches to draw Midoriya to his side as a group of frenzied shoppers runs past them. Honestly, nothing much. Oh, really? Toshinori coughs as a cold gust brushes over them. He grabs his scarf to hack into. You sound surprised. Oh, well, I mean, it's Christmas. Most people see family or friends or... Midoriya trails off, as if fearful he's crossing a line, eyes flicking up to check Toshinori's face with uncertainty. Toshinori merely shrugs, patting the scarf back to his chest with stiff hands. It's just a day. He startles. His father's voice rarely, if ever, comes out of him like that. He coughs again, more violently this time, as if to rid himself of it. Midoriya nods his agreement, his shrug a mimic of Toshinori's indifference. Yeah, just a day. And that causes Toshinori to freeze. For some reason, hearing any kind of passivity out of Midoriya, curious, animated kid that he is, who can get passionate about every last detail of anything, leaves Toshinori feeling perturbed. Toshinori has long accepted the life he leads, but Midoriya? His successor is still a child. He should be enjoying things like holidays, with the bit of innocence kids his age still possess. His chest knots uncomfortably at the thought of Midoriya lacking enough good experiences to make this a happy time for him. What do you mean, young Midoriya? Midoriya's ears seem to prick in concern at Toshinori's voice. He looks a little flighty all of a sudden. What? I only said the same thing you did. Yes, but... But what? I'm different? Is he, though? Toshinori is looking right at Midoriya, and he's shaken by how clearly his own loneliness reflects right back at him. He doesn't want Midoriya to be like him. He wants him happier, healthier. He wants him to end up with more to come home to than an empty apartment filled only with ghosts. No, he decides then. That just won't do. Midoriya is watching him curiously. Toshinori slows both of their steps as they approach the downtown ice skating rink. The sounds of high-pitched laughter and clinking skates reach their ears. Toshinori remembers Dave offhandedly suggesting they pick up skating, that forming their own rinky-dink hockey team made up of their rowdy, goofy college friends would help pass the time during winter breaks. Time did indeed pass, but they'd never ended up skating, too busy with whatever was next on their schedules. Then they'd blinked, and college was over with. If Toshinori has learned anything in recent years, it is that life is short. And right now, he thinks it would be fun to skate. And if part of this decision is fueled by his sudden desperation to give Midoriya everything he didn't have, well, who would blame him? He looks down at the boy beside him, whose head is still tilted in question. Toshinori waggles his eyebrows mischievously. Midoriya's green eyes widen in response. You, want to go in there? You want to ice skate? Yes, I do. It's supposed to be fun, isn't it? Oh, I wouldn't know, Midoriya stammers. I've never done it before. Well, that settles it then. Toshinori's grin is wide as he beckons for Midoriya to follow him through the creaky wooden gate. Good. I haven't either. Let's go find our size and skates. You haven't... You mean you want today to be your first time? Midoriya asks skeptically. But he doesn't hesitate to trail behind Toshinori like a devoted duckling, careful not to let the swinging gate knock into his oversized coca. Today, yes. Today is as good as any. Come on, young Midoriya. Don't give me that look. Have a little sense of adventure. He can't contain his sudden playfulness. It's going to be a good day. For Midoriya and for him. This bubbling excitement at trying something new. Generally, this enjoyment of anything. It's nice. He sincerely hopes that this spark he's been experiencing lately is here to stay. Because it's been nice. Feeling alive again. They are both terrible on the ice. This is a disaster of an idea, Toshinori realizes too late. Yes, he's fully aware that he flies across the tops of buildings, thank you. He doesn't know why his tremendous height is suddenly so terrifying when paired with an operating pair of ice skates, but it is. He has that much farther to fall. He's a 7-foot pole of man trying to ambulate on 2 extremely thin blades, for Pete's sake. None of it seems right. Who in hell came up with this death wish of a sport? Midoriya doesn't share his height issue, but his coordination is definitely in question. They're still working on that. Toshinori thinks with a sympathetic wince. Legs wobbling, the boy has mainly stuck to clutching the sides of the rink. Every time he looks as though he's going to be brave and venture away from the rail, his arms spiral like paddles on a boat to keep himself from falling flat. He looks over his shoulder at Toshinori. I don't think I'm doing this right, Midoriya says miserably. Toshinori, nearly blown over sideways in the wake of a speedy passerby skater, grits his teeth. Before he has the chance to take the boy by his arm and wobble both of them the hell off this chilled death trap, a duo, who he assumes to be mother and daughter, based off their matching mummy and me outfits and their identical tight hair buns, skates between the two gracefully. The little girl points at a fumbling Midoriya with her mitted hand, laughing loudly. "No, now, dear," her mother cries. "Not everyone can be a star on the ice like you." Midoriya actually pouts. It's kind of funny. Toshinori snorts in amusement. The little girl looks up at him and points again. Are you his daddy? You don't look like his daddy. Why did he turn out so green? Toshinori chokes, and he thinks he might finally lose his balance. Midoriya sputters something incomprehensible off the side. The mother simply sighs. Haruka, darling, he must be adopted. Ignoring Toshinori's look of rising panic, she asks, Are you and your son planning on competing this weekend? Is all Toshinori's brain comes up with in response. Brilliant. Midoriya looks like he's slowly succumbing to death by sheer embarrassment. The poor kid is sliding down the wall at this point, red face and sticking a leg out to keep him from completely sitting on the ice. If you're not going to be competing in the parent-child tournament, I suggest you leave the ice to those more skilled. Your incompetence is a bit distracting for those of us practicing to win, the mother says. She leaves with a dramatic twirl, and her daughter follows suit, sticking her tongue out at the pair before skating off. Toshinori and Midoriya are left to stare at one another in disbelief. Come on, Toshinori declares suddenly, shuffling over awkwardly to where he can reach out for Midoriya's hand. Midoriya eyes him with hesitation, arms shaking with the effort of holding himself in place. What? I said, come on. We're going to get in one good lap. Show those two what we're made of. But, All Might, they were right. We're terrible. That's besides the point, young Midoriya. They don't get to decide who uses the rink. How do they expect anyone to get better without practice? Not that I want more practice, my boy. I believe I've had my fill of ice skating forever. But it's the principle of the thing. He beckons again for Midoriya to take his hand. It might be easier if we're holding on to each other for extra support. Otherwise, no offense, but look at you, kid. You're 1 second away from crawling over on the ice. Me? Midoriya squeaks. I don't exactly see you doing any figure eights. Is his successor grumpy? Toshinori has never actually seen him be so before. It's mild, so mild, but the fact that Midoriya just got remotely sassy with Toshinori quirks his mouth into a grin. Perhaps it's a strange thing to feel happy about, but the fact that the kid has grown comfortable to dish back Toshinori's teasing banter makes him feel unexpected pride. Hey now, at least I've travelled more than a foot in the last half hour. Come on, kid, victory lap. Help an old man save his dignity. I think we're both beyond saving that, Midoriya bemoans, along with an automatic trailing reply of, And you're not old. But reluctantly, he does take Toshinori's hand. Toshinori gently pulls the boy away from the wall and, albeit shakily, they make their way to the centre of the rink. There we go. It seems well until Midoriya starts backpedaling like a fish out of water. Toshinori's eyes go wide, and the boy nearly takes him down with him. Kid, you've got to stay calm. I've got you. I promise. And just like that, Midoriya does relax. Instantly. Wow. That was easy. Suddenly he's struck with just how unwavering Midoriya's trust in him is. If the boy notices the way that Toshinori's grip tightens around his own smaller, mitted hands, he doesn't say so. Just one lap, Midoriya clarifies. Right? Toshinori nods. Just one, then we can get the hell out of here. They are about halfway through said victory lap, doing relatively alright, save for having to stop for Midoriya's occasionally backpedaling until Toshinori is able to steady them both, when Haruka, the little dear, darts right between them, breaking their hands apart when she kicks off into the air in a fancy pirouette. Chaos ensues. It's Toshinori's turn to backpedal, and Midoriya spins out, toppling onto the ice with a heavy thud. His clumsy collapse interrupts Haruka's routine, who yelps as she trips over him. They slide together for a few feet across the ice in a tangled heap. Toshinori himself backs straight into the child's mother before he can catch his balance, apologizing hastily before she starts chewing him out for letting your uncoordinated adoptee ruin Haruka's routine. What if she were to get injured before her competition? Don't you know she's a star in the making? An increasingly irate Toshinori wobbles over to his successor and practically drags the boy off the ice in his arms, biting back the decidedly immature reply of, Your kid's the one who ran into my kid. Final victory lap be damned. At least we tried something new, Midoriya pipes up over his second cup of hot cocoa of the day. It was bought at the insistence of a very guilty Toshinori, topped with even more whipped cream than the first, to the point where it looks 2 seconds away from collapsing over the side of the mug. That's the spirit, young Midoriya. No, don't take the ice off, Toshinori chides, reaching out to gently push the ice pack to rest against his successor's eye. He winces in sympathy. That's definitely going to be a shiner. I didn't see you hit your face. Midoriya blushes something fierce, mumbling something under his breath. Sorry, my boy, I didn't catch that. What did you say? That Haruka girl kneed me in the face when she fell, Midoriya murmurs, ears going red with embarrassment. A shopper carrying a mountain's worth of bags brushes by the table they've chosen to sit at. One of the bags knocks into their table, shaking it slightly, and the precarious pile of whipped cream on Midoriya's drink loses its battle to stay upright. They both stare as the puffy substance flies and lands on the ground with a plop, seeping into the snow until it blends in completely. Toshinori drags a hand down his face in defeat. I'm messing this all up, aren't I? What? No, what do you mean? Well, kid, let's recap. So far, you've gotten the world's worst ice skating lesson and a black eye from a girl no older than 8. Toshinori waves wildly down at the whipped cream graveyard beside them. And the drinks I got you, they were overkill, weren't they? Do you even like whipped cream? Yeah, I do, Midoriya assures frantically. He looks down at the gooey plot of snow. I mean, not that much of it, normally, but that's not a big deal. I'm sorry, young Midoriya. Toshinori sighs in frustration. I want to give you a good Christmas, but I'm not so sure I know how to have one myself. I'm having a great Christmas, Midoriya insists. He takes the ice pack from Toshinori, who's been opting to hold it to the boy's face himself. Firstly, I get to spend it with All Might, which has been my #1 Christmas wish since, well, he falters shyly. Since forever, probably, and even the bad things aren't all that bad. We learned things. We learned that we don't like ice skating. Midoriya's stubborn optimism an amused huff out of Toshinori. You learned I don't need a whole mountain of whipped cream on my hot chocolate. Midoriya smiles, one eye hidden behind a dripping bag of ice. His nose and cheeks are rosy from the cold, and his freckles stick out in contrast. You don't need to worry about me. But I do, kid. Toshinori's chest squeezes like a vice at the innocence on Midoriya's face. I really do. You pick, he says. Midoriya looks at him questioningly. You pick the rest of the things we do today. Me? Yes, you. I picked ice skating. That was a bust. Now it's your turn. How would you like to spend the rest of Christmas Eve? Oh, Midoriya says, surprised. He contemplates for a moment. Let's go back to the beach. Toshinori studies his successor with some concern, lips pursing. He's got to get it through this kid's head that it's all right to take breaks. No, Midoriya, today's a vacation day, remember? I'm not about to put you to work on Christmas Eve. No, not to work, just to be there, I guess, on the part that's clean so far. Toshinori hesitates. Are you sure? You don't want to do something, I don't know, more special? By this, of course, he means maybe seeing a holiday show or a store that Midoriya's been wanting to visit, something fun that Midoriya doesn't usually get to do. It's special there, is the boy's simple answer. Toshinori's other suggestions die on the tip of his tongue. He nods, his throat suddenly a little thick. Whatever you want, kid. To Doggerba Beach, then. Sugar rush, Midoriya had warned him about halfway through his second hot cocoa, and it has definitely been so. He's been running wild along the snow-dusted shore, plopping down here and there to make messy, sandy snow angels. Toshinori is content to hang back, chuckling at the boy's impressive burst of energy. He's also been taking note of how much he's been laughing lately, genuinely laughing. Each one cracks open something in his chest, something that he hadn't even realized he'd closed off over the years. On the tail end of his successor's sugar buzz, he ventures to fall back into the fluffier snow beside Toshinori, winded and chattering about this and that as Toshinori hums along lightheartedly. This goes on for hours. Hours! Toshinori can hardly believe it. Where does the time go? Until the setting sun reflects itself upon the snow, dyeing it with deep pinks and oranges. Was there anything in particular you wanted this year? Toshinori means it as a casual question, one appropriate for Christmas, he'd assumed, but it causes Midoriya to duck his head. The boy's rush of words colliding to become a traffic jam of gibberish. Toshinori lifts his hands in surrender. My boy, you know I have no idea what any of that was. Could you repeat it all slowly? He laughs. Midoriya, still lying on his back in the snow, looks up with his mitted hands, which are busy playing with his scarf. I said, you're just going to call me fanboy if I say it, All Might. Ah, is it a piece of merchandise you've been wanting? Toshinori teases, reaching out to ruffle Midoriya's curls. Midoriya shakes his head before stopping himself. Well, yeah, I'm always happy to get that, he admits, and Toshinori's chuckle rumbles deep within his chest, cracking the shell even further. No, I was saying, well, I already told you that meeting you was my wish for a long time, the boy says shyly, and so was having a quirk, and this year I met you, and I'm getting a quirk, and I'm spending Christmas Eve with you, and... He sits up, chunks of snow and sand falling from his shoulders. And yeah, you get what I mean. Gifts couldn't really compare to all that. I've already gotten everything I've ever wished for. He scrubs furiously at his eyes, trying his best to keep his trademark waterworks at bay for today. He's done a pretty good job of it too. Toshinori can't even tease him for it this time, not when he has to fight his own eyes from burning a bit. It's been wonderful, feeling things again, don't get him wrong, but everything seems to hit Toshinori with more force than it used to, like taking the first gasp of air after one's been holding their breath underwater. It's much needed, much appreciated, but a bit dizzying. This kid, with his open book expressiveness and near-constant waterworks, seems to have unlatched the floodgate in Toshinori's pent-up emotions too. Seemingly eager to take the spotlight off himself, Midoriya returns to fiddling with his scarf. So yeah, I'm set, I think. Did you want anything this year? Want? No. Toshinori hadn't wanted for himself. Not for a long time now. Need, yes. A successor. That had been the most prevalent need on his mind, earlier on in the year. He hadn't bothered to ask for happiness. For others, yes, of course. Never necessarily for himself. But he'd gotten that too. And the remarkable child before him had single-handedly given him both. What a gift Midoriya had been. A truly serendipitous find. Perhaps one day he'll be brave enough to say it. I think I'm set too, he says for now, softly. As soon as the sun has disappeared over the ocean, darkness is pulled down with it like a closing curtain. An unforgiving chill is cast over the snow. Toshinori motions for Midoriya to stand when they both start to shiver. They trudge uphill through the light snow, where the beach meets the boardwalk. I'll start walking you home. The temperature is only going to keep dropping. Your mother will be back soon too, won't she? Midoriya's nod is interrupted by a jaw-cracking yawn. Sugar rush indeed, and the follow-up crash is incoming. For a while they walk in stride, past homes adorned with blinking lights of red and green, until Midoriya starts to lose momentum. Toshinori finds himself having to stop every several feet, patiently waiting for his successor's shorter steps to catch up. The crunch, crunch, crunch of the boy's boots slows and slows. Toshinori huffs fondly after having to stop him for a fourth time. Gonna make it, kid? Yeah, gonna make it, is the mumbled response. Toshinori rolls his eyes, mock tapping his foot as he waits for the boy to catch up. Midoriya misses his mentor's teasing due to his eyes dropping half-closed. Toshinori places a large hand on the boy's back to help guide his sleepy steps as they turn a corner, where they meet an icy push of wind. Toshinori's teeth begin to chatter. The temperature is dropping rapidly. At this pace, they're going to freeze over on the sidewalk. "Do you need me to carry you the rest of the way?" he asks, half teasing, half not. Midoriya jerks, more awake at that, shaking his head wildly. "No! All my... That's fine. I don't need to be carried. It was just... lots of sugar." Toshinori hums skeptically, one brow quirked as Midoriya passes him with the speed of a snail. They carry on like this for about 5 more minutes, but when Toshinori has to stop for nearly a full minute for Midoriya to drag his feet through the snow to get to him, he sighs. "Midoriya, my boy, you're killing me here. Let me carry you. I insist on it." Midoriya's retort is nothing but a mumble now, and before he nods off completely, Toshinori has squatted down in front of him. He pulls Midoriya's arms over his own shoulders so that the boy hangs off his back in a piggyback ride style. Midoriya has put on weight since the beginning of training. Toshinori notes it proudly when the effort of lifting him has him letting out an oof. He's still on the smaller side for his age though, so Toshinori has little trouble with his weight. It was the quietest part of their day, with Midoriya's excited chatter having faded into soft, whistling snores. Toshinori is left as he normally is on Christmas, alone with his thoughts. Old habits die hard, it seems. The memories always wait to bombard him until his world has gone quiet. He watches his own breath fog in the air in front of him as he allows his ghosts their visit. Unwittingly, he thinks of his parents, as he always does first. Their presence so vague he can barely remember the details of their faces. From their passivity for life bore Toshinori's search for more, for a greater purpose, for love and acceptance they were never willing to give, which had driven him to seek out Nana, whose face flashes through his mind like a soothing balm for the sting of his parents' memory. His true mother's hand had ruffled his hair after teaching him the game of poker. She smiled at him crookedly from over her cup of hot cocoa. "You've got it all from here, kid." Her voice had been tinged with pride. Too much pride for Toshinori learning a basic poker move. Had she known then that she wouldn't be around for the next Christmas to come? He thinks of Gran. Gran's memory never strays too far away from that of Nana's. Victoriously throwing down his hand of cards after beating Toshinori at yet another game. He'd mock-insulted him around the cigar hanging out of his mouth, wisps of smoke curling around his face in a hazy embrace, eyes twinkling with affection he'd never voice. Dave's smile fills his mind too, cheeks flushed with alcohol as he handed Toshinori another beer, wearing the ugliest Christmas sweater Toshinori had ever seen, one with a stupid-looking 3D reindeer popping off of it, cheap battery lights stitched throughout. Mirai's glee whenever Toshinori stumbled across the new spot of the day where Mirai had meticulously placed the elf on the shelf, and his cryptic clues whenever Toshinori was close to giving up his search. The images flick through his mind quickly, like clips on a projector screen, but he's pulled away before he can wallow in front of them for too long. Midoriya's weight has begun to slide down his back a bit. Toshinori pauses to gently hoist the boy up further. The clouded puffs of Midoriya's breath fill the side of his vision. The boy's hands are loosely clasped in front of Toshinori's neck. The boy still mumbles, even in sleep. "Can you help me move this fridge? There's too many crabs in my way. I don't want to interrupt their picnic." What can I do? Toshinori thinks with sudden desperation. Subconsciously, he tightens his grip on the boy's legs around his waist. What can I do to make sure I don't lose him too? Because the others, they're all gone to him now. If he ends up losing Midoriya like he lost them, he already knows. He's a dying man, tethered to life by this boy. He wouldn't survive it. An older couple passes by then, pulling Toshinori from his panicked thoughts. He dips his head in a silent hello, forcing himself back into calm. Hand in hand, the couple smiles at the sight of a sleeping Midoriya on Toshinori's back. Even as teenagers, They never really stop being our babies, do they? The woman teases. Toshinori huffs out an awkward chuckle. Is it even worth correcting? Yeah, he says softly instead. His own blaring theme song shatters the following silence, and he jumps a bit, jarring Midoriya out of mid-sleep talk. The boy blindly digs around for something in one of his coat pockets. It's my mum calling, he says, voice heavy with sleep. He slides off Toshinori's back completely. His mentor turns to help steady him. Hi, Mum. The conversation lasts less than a minute, but Midoriya is fully awake by the time it ends, face alight with joy when he lifts it up towards Toshinori. My mum gets to be home tomorrow for Christmas. Her work, they actually let her have the day off. Oh, that's wonderful, my boy. Toshinori's heart soars for the kid. I'm so happy you'll get to spend the day with her. Yeah, Midoriya breathes, nearly bouncing in excitement. Yeah, she hasn't gotten Christmas off in forever. Toshinori smiles warmly, opening his mouth to say more, but he's interrupted by a huddle of Christmas carolers, who round the corner quickly. He pulls both of them to the edge of the sidewalk to make way for their jolly horde. Under the glare of the streetlight, Midoriya's ears, bright red from the cold again, stick out like a sore thumb. Toshinori sighs, cupping large hands to his successor's head, just as carolers begin belting out their high-pitched rendition of Christmas Time is Here. Midoriya blinks up at them. It's okay, they're not that bad, Midoriya tells him. Toshinori smirks. I'm not trying to block out their singing, I'm just trying to warm your ears. I wish you'd cover the poor things. Well, your hands aren't helping, they're freezing too, Midoriya yelps, squishing Toshinori's bare hands with his own mitted ones in order to warm them. Why don't you ever cover them? At first, Toshinori chuckles at that, because, point taken, but the chuckles die off when he notices Midoriya's frown. All Might, the boy asks seriously. Who helps you? Toshinori startles, blinking down at the boy's face between his hands. Who? What? Helps me? You tried so hard to make sure I was happy today, Midoriya says, his frown deepening. And you're always doing all these charity events and things around Christmas. You always try to make sure everyone else is happy, even though it doesn't seem like it's usually a happy day for you. Truly, Toshinori doesn't know where the boy is going with this, so he just stares dumbly. You always worry about me covering my ears, Midoriya continues on, so you cover them up with your hands, like now, but you don't even bother to wear gloves or anything, even though you've told me how cold triggers your arthritis. He tightens the push of his hands into Toshinori's as if to reiterate, Who helps you? The skin around Midoriya's left eye is starting to purple. Surely his eye will be swollen shut by morning. Christmas lights from surrounding homes reflect themselves off the boy's face. Pinks, blues, and greens, blinking to disappear and then reappear. But his determinately furrowed brow remains unchanged. The kid has a way of doing this, sometimes, showing a particular wisdom beyond his years. It never fails to throw Toshinori off guard. One moment, Midoriya will have all the awkwardness and clumsy uncertainty of a teenager, and in the next, he'll display this level of understanding that always leaves Toshinori baffled. Right now, with the way the boy is looking at Toshinori, Toshinori knows that he's really being seen, and there's little more that frightens him than that. My boy! He clears his throat. I don't. He flounders for a few beats. I'll do it then, Midoriya declares boldly, when Toshinori spends too long gaping like a fish to answer. Do what? Toshinori repeats faintly. It's unnerving being seen like this. He doesn't help you. On reflex, of course, Toshinori wants to say no, to say, I don't need help. You're a child and I'm an adult. I'm All Might. I'm here to help you. Refusals of all shapes and sizes could pass his lips, but something halts them all. If you really don't want to lose him, you must be different this time. Because this was exactly how he'd lost the others. The ones still living, anyway. One by one, he'd inadvertently shut each of them out, his pride not allowing him to accept the help they all but begged to give him. Yes, he knows. This time things must be different. For this kid, he has no choice but to be better. So he starts by saying, "Okay." Does he mean it? He's not entirely sure, but the look on Midoriya's face indicates the boy's been playsated enough for now. "Okay, good. Want to come spend Christmas with me and my mum tomorrow?" Midoriya smiles, his bruising eye already swollen half closed. Yeah, sure." Toshinori stammers at the abrupt change in subject. "Wait, are you sure? If she rarely gets the holiday off, I don't want to intrude." "You're not!" Midoriya exclaims, and with that, his childlike demeanor is back, all excitable energy and impulsive chatter. "You're not, All Might. I promise. We'll make extra food and hot cocoa and—" Okay. Toshinori coughs weakly, fondness for the child bubbling within him like a fountain. He ruffles his hair a little more vigorously than usual before letting him go. "If your mother will have me, and you'll check with her tonight for me, you promise? I'd be delighted to join you both for Christmas." Midoriya is re-energized, as if he'd just won the lottery, and the final moments of their walk to his apartment are filled with more of his chatter. "We have board games, I think. Do you like board games, All Might?" "Mastermind. I think we have it somewhere. Yeah, I'll go dig through my closet again. I also have Scrabble and Battleship and—" When they reach his apartment, the boy has already tired himself out again. He earnestly thanks Toshinori for the best Christmas Eve ever. Thank you, All Might, before heading for the door. "Oh, and Midoriya," Toshinori calls out after a thoughtful pause. Midoriya turns around sleepily. "Yeah, All Might?" "To better answer you earlier. You already have." Midoriya scrunches his nose in confusion, stepping aside as a small heap of snow slides from the roof siding above. "Have what?" "Helped me." Saved me is what he really means. But he's still working on this vulnerability thing, remember? Midoriya Inko ushers Toshinori into her home bright and early on Christmas morning, a cold gust of wind trailing in after him and slamming the door shut with a whoosh. Warmth and the smells of still cooking breakfast embrace him like a blanket. His fears about intruding on the Midoriya's holiday begin to melt away too, in the face of Inko's clear delight to have him. She is as purely expressive as her son is. She grasps his hands with hers after he bows low and thanks her for sharing this day with him. "I've seen the change in him over the last half a year," she says, voice wobbling, "and I think you're to thank in large part. He has so much more confidence now. I don't know what motivated you to take him under your wing, Mr. Yagi, but I've been wishing for someone like you for a long time." She turns her head to give a small bow. "Thank you for believing in my son." Toshinori can't give much of a reply to that, other than an earnest nod. His damn throat has betrayed him by clogging itself up again. The tree the Midoriyas have set up is small and a little lopsided. "I didn't have much time to get off work to find a tree with Izuku. We ended up going kind of late in the season. There weren't many options left," Inko explains, rubbing the back of her head in slight embarrassment. The tree is adorned with mismatched ornaments, many of which look as if they've been crafted by young hands. Toshinori catches Izuku's school pictures glued on a couple of them. He thinks the whole thing is rather adorable. "It's perfect," he says sincerely. "He's here? Mr. Yagi! Good morning! Merry Christmas!" Midoriya makes his grand entrance by rushing down the stairs excitedly, 2 at a time from the sounds of it, turning the corner and screeching to a halt before he can run straight into his mentor, socked feet nearly slipping in the process. He looks up at Toshinori sleepily. "Oops," he breathes out. "Sorry, hi." "Hi." Toshinori ruffles the boy's hair warmly. "Merry Christmas, young Midoriya." "Izuku, why don't you show Mr. Yagi around? Breakfast will be ready soon." Inko eyes her son's excitement with amusement, fixing the neck of her apron as she heads back towards the kitchen. Before he knows it, Toshinori is whisked away on a tour, Midoriya pointing out the obvious. This is our living room, where we watch TV and stuff, along with denying the obvious. I know my room has a lot of posters of you, but I'm not a crazy fanboy, I swear. The Midoriya's home is warmly coloured, filled with homey clutter where Toshinori's feel stark. It holds the sounds of Inko, who pokes her head out of the kitchen, spatula in hand, as she gently interrupts her son's chatter with a request to come and help serve breakfast. It holds Midoriya, whose sheer joy at having both his mother and his hero with him on Christmas Day practically radiates off him in contagious waves. If his remaining Christmases are going to look anything like this, if the Midoriyas will have him, of course, then he'll dare to say it. He loved those previous chapters in his life, it's true. But this one may already be his favourite yet. They exchange their gifts. Midoriya, much to Toshinori's amusement, gifts Toshinori with a pair of gloves. Midoriya accepts his own gift of earmuffs with a bashful grin. Well, at least now our sets are complete, right? Midoriya pulls out his board games, untouched for so long that he has to shake the dust off them. Toshinori and Inko exchange polite, shy smiles as they both try to keep up with Midoriya's attempts to teach them the rules of various games. They eat homemade cookies, and Toshinori gets to know Inko over cups of eggnog. He insists on helping them both clean up in the kitchen afterwards, where they're all sent giggling too hard, where Midoriya accidentally sneezes over the full sink, sending sudsy bubbles to soak the fronts of their clothes. There's a peculiar familiarity in it all. All three of them may be poorly versed in the art of traditional festivities, or even in knowing what it means to be a completed family. But they do the best each of them knows how, and it's more than enough. Hey there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. It's Ella, and I hope you're having a lovely Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. I don't know what it will be at the point of this. For me, it's currently Christmas. It's actually 5 a.m, but I wanted to finish this fic, and it's also the end of Ficmas. I mean, unless a new chapter or part of window displays goes up, in which case I might end up recording on Christmas just to do it. But for the meantime, this is the end of Ficmas. I know, it's devastating, isn't it? Actually broken my heart. It was so fun, and obviously I had to end it with DadMight because it's DadMight. Did you cry at this? Because I cried about 30 times recording this. It was, no, honestly, like I was genuinely actually a mess recording this. I kept having to stop because I kept crying because, he's my dad and I love him and this is so beautiful. Oh, and you know what? I feel like there is just not enough fanfic content out there about, like, the time between Midoriya meeting All Might and them starting training and before he gets, like, all for one for all. Jesus, I say all for one too much in the series, and now I keep saying it instead of one for all. But yeah, before he gets one for all, and they're just like got this, what is it, like 10 months training montage, because obviously it's like a montage. But I want to know more about this time because I think it must be really adorable, and this one has sold me on it, and now I want to cry. But tell me what you thought of the fic. Did you also cry? Because if you didn't, I'm not going to say I'm judging you, but I'm a little bit judging you. I'm not judging you. But I do want to know what you guys thought. Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully I'm selling you on the DadMight content because this is All Might propaganda. This is an All Might stan account. And if you're not ready for that, you should probably unsubscribe. Please don't unsubscribe. I'll probably cry. Because, you know, so I hit 1.5k today, which is kind of crazy. Like, actually, like, batshit insane. Like, where did you people come from? What are you doing? How many of you need father figures in your life? Sorry. This is a subject that keeps coming up in Discord. You should join that too, because it's fun. And we are a big family over there. And honestly, it's very found family. Everyone's getting adopted. It's a good time. So you should probably join it. Because it's Christmas and you need the found family at Christmas. You can also like the video, if you liked it, and to boost my serotonin levels. You could also subscribe because, I spent several hours on Christmas Eve recording this, so, it'd be nice. I mean, technically Christmas Day. Technically, I think most of this was recorded on Christmas Day in the UK. So, you better be leaving me nice thank you notes because this was hard work. And I had to cry a lot, okay? It was really emotional. I'm rambling again. I keep doing this. This is what happens when I record at 5 a.m. You just get ramble fests. And some of you are like, yeah, no, I love to hear you ramble. And I'm like, you must not. You must hate it, but you put up with it because I give you, content. Which is fine. That's the deal that's being struck here. But until I see you again, which I don't know when it's going to be, I might take a little bit of break post-Ficmas, because Ficmas almost killed me at some points. Mainly just because my health was already, really up and down while this was going on. It still is. I'm on medication because I had to go to the doctors because I've got really bad vertigo, constantly for the past, 2 weeks. And it won't stop. So hopefully that clears up soon. Or, I don't know, I might be dying. So, I'm rambling again. I should probably cut this out, but I probably won't because I'll be too tired to properly edit it. But there you go. So, a very Merry Christmas to you all. And happy holidays for everyone who celebrates stuff that isn't Christmas. I'm just a Christmas fiend, so I want to talk about Christmas all the time. But, if you're not celebrating Christmas, I hope you enjoy whatever it is that you're celebrating, even if it's maybe just a day off work. But, as I will be taking a break, until I see you again, I'm going to have to trust that you're going to start taking care of yourself. Because if I'm not here to remind you daily, I need to be able to trust you that you're going to be going to bed on time, that you're going to be eating your 5 a day. I need fruit, I need veg, I need vitamins. There better be getting some potassium in there, some vitamin C, some vitamin D, whatever they are, get them all in. And hydrate, drink lots of water, because at this time of year, it's easy to forget, because it's not hot out, so you're not like, oh, let me get a drink to cool me down. You want a nice warm drink. No, drink some water too, because you need it, okay? This is a threat. A Christmassy threat. A festive threat. I will catch you guys later.